If you're interested in the Toyota Tacoma, you know that there are many different configurations for the little truck. So today I'm going to drive two trucks from the opposite sides of the taco spectrum
to help you figure out what spec is best.
If you enjoy fun, detailed car content without fluff, consider subscribing and hitting the bell for notifications. I normally won't wear sunglasses for a video, but I'm going to lose vision. First, let me acquaint you with what we're comparing today. So this is an SR two-wheel drive, four-cylinder base truck. It doesn't have the utility package, which gets rid of a few things like the rear seats. That actually knocks off some in the price. So we're gonna come in right around $29,000 for the sticker, whereas this is a TRD off-road with the advanced package, and it has most of the features available for the Tacoma. TRD off-roads have a ton of different packages. They're gonna start around 38, but you can option them out to be like 45, even 46 grand.
And just like a Tacoma over rocks and parking lot curbs, the price will climb with ease if you start adding the wide variety of accessories like black badging, TRD exhaust, Pro Grill and lift, and so on. Not to mention the fairly common 5K markups on these things. Hell, most lightly used ones are going over the original MSRP right now. You'll likely have to do some digging and waiting to get one at sticker. And if you're looking for a new Toyota, these tacos came from the friendly people at Royal South Toyota in Bloomington, Indiana. Royal South is heavily invested in the community and usually has a diverse set of inventory, new and used. Check them out. Disclaimer, these trucks are 2022 models, but there were no mechanical changes for 23, and I will share only information on the new year.
The base engine available in the Tacoma SR and SR5 is the 2.7 liter inline 4. This particular variant has been around for quite some time. In fact, I have it in my own 2009 Toyota Tacoma, and I can personally attest it is a very sturdy little engine. Even though it is a 4-cylinder, it doesn't really want to rev. It makes a respectable amount of low down torque, which means that you have okay low end power. Half the problem with this power plant is the transmission. Here we will have it exclusively hooked up to a 6-speed automatic, whereas when this generation first debuted, you had the choice of a 5-speed manual, which is the exact setup that I have, and it's still slow. I have mine with 4-wheel drive, so it's also lugging around 4,000 pounds.
But it's okay even with my setup so long as you're in the right gear. It dies off quickly after making its peak 159 horsepower at just 5,200 RPMs. So long as it doesn't shift early, it feels fine on the city and highway unless high elevation comes into the mix. Leaving me with one piece of advice: use ECT power.
This transmission just really doesn't want to downshift when you're getting under throttle unless you have it in ECT power, which stands for electronically controlled transmission. Think of it like a sport mode. And I'm glad that that's there. I'm also glad that Toyota gives you a sequential shift mode. So if you want to go through the gears manually, or you just want to tell it, hey, don't shift past 4th gear, you can. Something that would definitely be necessary if you were to attempt to get close to towing the 3,500 pound max from this truck. And technically, this will actually haul the most out of any Toyota Tacoma, thanks to it having the same suspension yet carrying less weight.
So it will satisfy the work needs of many, but what about your thirst for speed? Let's try a quick 0 to 60 to find out.
For this test, I'll have AC off, I'll have it in ECT power, and traction control will be disabled. This is going to be very embarrassing, but science. A little wheel slip there, okay. So we came up with the 0 to 60 time about 11 seconds flat.
That number tells the story well, but I stand by saying this provides enough oomph for most usage. Response is fine if you're in ECT power and is adequate for highway travel until around 75, where it begins to feel severely labored. You have to think twice before pulling out in a small window.
But that isn't the appeal of this engine, and I'm actually still glad that they make it. Because as a work truck, you're gonna really value something that has low running costs. So it does get a little bit better gas mileage in the city, but what I've found with my own 4-cylinder Tacoma is that its gas mileage actually fares a lot better than most V6s, when it comes to very short trips.
But it still won't top the 6-cylinder on the highway. Another part of running cost is maintenance, and this holds an edge since it is more simple with a longer history than the dual injection V6 and has easier access under the hood.
One thing I've actually grown to accept over the years with my Tacoma is the seating position. At first it's kind of awkward because it's a shorter cab, so you almost sit in it more like a car, except the steering wheel sits kind of far away from you. And that's a thing that as a taller driver definitely takes some getting used to. But even here at 6'3", I can find a comfortable driving position because I do have a adjustable lumbar support. Plus you get a power seat with height adjustment in the SR5. However, one thing I know a lot of you are curious about, how is the back seat? So I've been dailying in access cab, and look, it ain't glamorous, but if I shift my butt over a little bit to the side, I can shut the door. So that's pretty good. If in a pinch you have to transport several people over 6 foot tall, this would still work. And we're assuming that they don't have super meaty thighs. I wouldn't really advise this as a primary family vehicle by any means, although you do have child seat latches back here. And while the double cab of the Tacoma is definitely better, there's still not exactly an abundance of space. I just have more support and dignity than I did before. As you take this thing around corners that have imperfections in them, it really chugs along through them. It's just not all that composed. The steering is slow. It does feel numb. It's not super precise, but the way they have weighted it helps it avoid feeling too unnatural.
Making the Tacoma an easy truck to drive even around town. It's confident but clumsy, like that one drunk guy who suddenly thinks he can impress any woman in the tri-state area.
Body roll and brake dive, honestly, compared to a Toyota 4Runner, it's not too bad. Now on this broken pavement, I think that if you're looking for a truckish truck, the current generation Toyota Tacoma is exactly that. It just does kind of jitter about. Feels like, you know, whatever you throw at it, it still takes it in stride. You know, nothing's really crashing through the cabin, and that's a pro to getting a body-on-frame traditional truck, leaf springs in the back. It feels stout, just not too refined.
However, the V6 models have a more settled ride.
Now in my fully decked out TRD off-road, over the same uneven broken road, this is honestly a little bit more comfortable, smoother. I have the TRD off-road suspension on here, and that's going to be just a touch softer. It's still going to have that solid rear axle kind of jitteriness there around back. It has the bouncy truck feel, but it does still feel more buttoned down.
This wasn't placebo. The 4 cylinders are sprung differently from the V6 models. The dampening also receives a different tune by trim. The TRD Sport has a firmer setup, the off-road uses softer Bilsteins, and the limited SR5 and SR have the same setup that sit in between. Do take into account sidewall differences as well. I can't comment on the TRD Pro because I haven't driven it, but I would expect that to be able to take more abuse due to its TRD-tuned off-road suspension that comes with Fox internal bypass coilovers and rear shocks with a remote reservoir.
You're going to have the venerable 2GR FKS V6, which came out around 2016. It's a direct injected, port fuel injected, much more sophisticated engine when compared to the 2.7 liter inline 4. This is going to make 278 horsepower, and it's also going to be paired up to a 6-speed automatic here, but as standard, it's going to have a 6-speed manual transmission. That's going to be available in all of the TRD trims, and unlike the 4-cylinder, you can get the V6 in any trim. But where the 4-cylinder had more of a traditional truck power band, this has the power band of a 3-row crossover. You have to rev it out in order to get more serious power from it, which is a downside. It does okay. And this, I don't feel like I would need to use the ECT power button at all times. So the transmission just, I think, does a little bit better job of getting the engine to the required power band here.
And the extra power means that the truck isn't as hindered by the transmission's mistakes. Still, compared to the old 4-liter V6 or the turbocharged competition, I wish it was more alive in the lower rev range. That said, this engine should still run laps around the 4-banger from 0 to 60.
Had to be a little bit more gentle on the start there. A lot quicker. I think I could have been more demanding there. Regardless, 0 to 60 came up in a respectable 7.7 seconds. Highway pulling power, much better.
And it's noticeably easier to cruise and pass at higher speeds. It also has a taller final drive ratio, allowing it to cruise at 70 around 1800 RPMs, where the 4-cylinder will be more like 2000. Wind and tire noise are pronounced but not offensive.
And actually, traction is another thing I want to talk about. Regardless if you get the 4-cylinder or the 6, you're going to have Toyota's Auto LSD standard. What that does is it helps in low traction scenarios, kind of fake like it's a limited slip differential if you're using the brakes. It does work well. It definitely won't replace a locking differential off-road, but it'll help you get out of some sort of trickier situations. But of course, you can get 4-wheel drive on any trim, and if you go with the TRD Off-Road or TRD Pro, you'll have a true locking rear differential. And automatic off-road and Pro models will also get their trick crawl control.
That also uses the brakes to help divert power where necessary. Stick shift off-road and Pro buyers get A-Track, which has a similar premise, and when it comes to the brakes themselves, I found the 4-cylinder models to be a little bit more spongy, whereas the V6 tends to bite a little sharper. Both use front disc, rear drum.
Now, the main thing I want to talk about on the exterior are the different ways that you can equip your Tacoma. A couple notable exterior differences that you'll see across the trims are these plastic moldings, which will come on the TRD Off-Road and TRD Pro, whereas other trucks will get body painted flares or don't have this at all. And then you will have the big hood scoop on the TRD Pro and TRD Sport. Either way you go, you're going to get Toyota's awesome bed rail system as standard, which most will also get bed cleats built into them, which is a very useful tie-down tool. I've used it myself on my own Tacoma many times to move things like mopeds, refrigerators, lawnmowers. It really adds to the versatility and especially the usability of even these shorter beds. Mine has the 6-foot, and that's definitely come in handy with moving things like couches. However, if you just want to camp in the back, there are definitely solutions so that you can work with a 5-foot box instead of a 6-foot.
All access cab trucks will have a 6'2" bed, something that is optional but rare on the double cab. The 6-foot bed will make moving 4x8 sheets, bulky furniture, and 10-foot kayaks easier, but if you're smart with ratchet straps and you have the self-esteem to stand up to old dudes who make fun of short beds, 5 feet is good. That's also the only box size for TRD Pro, Trail Edition, or double cab trucks with the manual trans.
In all, we'll still get a composite material back here. It can take a lot of abuse and it won't rust the same way, and you don't need to get it lined or anything. One thing I do love about all Toyota Tacomas is manual parking brake. Now, when it comes to other major features that you'll get going with the more expensive truck, you will upgrade from a 7-inch touchscreen to an 8-inch touchscreen that's just a little bit better. All of them have Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. Navigation is of course available. Here with the advanced package, I will have a JBL sound system, but oddly enough, if you go with a manual transmission model, you can't get the JBL, even on the TRD Pro. Additionally, manual transmission models cannot get the proximity smart key that Toyota offers, which is standard on the TRD models otherwise. You can opt for things like heated seats or sunroof if you go with the double cab.
And this can look almost upscale in limited form. My advice if you want convenience would be to go at least for an SR5 V6, which gets a couple extra features over the 4-banger, along with that extra power boost. I'd also advise the slick looking LED lights that are offered and usually included in the tech packages that also have blind spot monitoring. In no outfit does the Tacoma come with luxurious appointments, but all have a durable yet somewhat modern look and feel.
I have watched actually quite a few videos on people towing, 5,000-6,000 pounds with these things, and it's doing just fine. Put it in the sequential mode, have ECT power on, and yeah, gas mileage will not be good, but it will comply, which is actually a reason why I was really trying to buy one of these last year when I had a real job, because I also have a little drift car, and this would be perfect for having to tow that a couple times a year. I also wanted the manual transmission, so that's again a 6-speed. It's going to have a little bit more aggressive gearing than this, so gas mileage does take a small hit. Shifter's a bit rubbery, the clutch could be a little bit more communicative, but me personally, if you know how to drive a manual transmission and you don't mind trying to find one, I would recommend getting one while you can.
And that's one of my favorite parts of this gen Tacoma. There are a wide variety of outfits with different purposes. You want a tough as nails work truck for under 30 grand? Here you go. Go anywhere work and play vehicle? No problem. And while I can't say it pulls off the luxury vibe near as well as the new Tundra, there's an option for those who hold refinement to a higher priority. And the different packages and bed sizes mean that you can mix and match certain attributes if you'd like, all the while knowing that this truck will last however long you need it to, so long as you take care of the frame. In certain regards, there's plenty of room to improve. Still, the next gen has a high bar to clear. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, leave a like to help me make a fool of the YouTube algorithm, subscribe and hit the bell for more. And thank you to my very loyal patrons. I'll catch you in the next one.